So a lot of tech ground to cover here, from Chinese scrutiny of US firms to advances with Huawei. Let's bring in Felix Li of Morningstar to help us get some perspective. So Felix, Huawei is reportedly bundling thousands of chips together to rival Nvidia's computing power. That's a very different approach in the AI race. But is this really a technological breakthrough that gives China a clear edge over its Western rivals, or just a temporary workaround?
Okay, so this SuperPort technology is actually an answer to NVIDIA's NVLink technology. So the SuperPort and NVLink technologies is what they say. They link chips together into a single backbone so that they can function as a single, they seem to function as a single chip. So that is effectively pooling all together hundreds and thousands of chips in order to maximize their performance. So we think this is an answer to competition, but not exactly something that could uniquely pull Huawei in front of Nvidia or any of its competition.
Well, Felix, according to the Financial Times report, and Chinese regulators are urging local tech firms to cut their reliance on Nvidia. So has the moment truly arrived for China to say, we can live without you, Nvidia, or is that still more aspirational than practical?
Well, there are a few ways to look at this. The first way is from the geopolitical side, because the U.S. somewhat needs China as a revenue source to power future R&D roadmaps, while China also needs the best chips, as good as possible chips to roll out more and more AI applications. So it's kind of an equal footing regarding these two countries. On the fundamental side, I would say having these chips would be instrumental for both countries, because China is still having some manufacturing gaps with international leaders like TSMC. So it's not something, I think right now it's still a bit aspirational, but the long-term 5 to 10-year outlook is to really have their self-sufficiency in China.
Well, we've seen Beijing drop its antitrust probe into Google while doubling down on Nvidia in the middle of sensitive trade talks. So what's the strategy here? Why single out Nvidia? And what message is Beijing trying to send to Washington?
It's really about getting leverage. So Google has been unavailable in China for at least a decade. And also Google does have some revenue in China via some search-related advertisements, but Nvidia is definitely the bigger lever to pull, potentially, because before any of these chip-related bans, Nvidia has around 15 to 20% revenue in China. So that is a very significant market for Nvidia or any chip company. So depriving Nvidia of any such revenue could potentially be, it could affect the stock performance of Nvidia, and it could also have a broader impact on semiconductor R&D due to the revenue, profit, and research cycles.
Well, Felix, let's circle back to the point that you mentioned about self-sufficiency. We are still facing many problems, such as bottlenecks in advanced chip making and increasingly fragmented supply chain. So it seems like a full self-sufficiency looks pretty elusive at the moment. So realistically, how can China carve out a lasting advantage in this global AI competition?
Right. So there are several ways to look at it. I'll delve into two parts. So the first part is advanced manufacturing. So SMIC has been producing 7 nanometer or equivalent chips in its mass production phase. And we expect SMIC to have 5 nanometer or equivalent chips in the coming years. That would prove quite sufficient for day-to-day AI usage. The other part is to break through on the equipment side. So there are hundreds of types of equipment in the semiconductor supply chain, and we would expect China would incubate a lot of these companies both listed and non-listed companies to each engage in some niches. So some niches would require a longer development time, and some would require a shorter period. But all in all, the trend has been to debottleneck a lot of these equipment deficiencies one by one, so that we would see, at least a partial self-sufficiency in 5 years' time. And we think, if as we look even further ahead, it is more likely for China to be self-sufficient.
All right, Felix, thank you so much for your insights. Felix Li, Senior Equity Analyst with Morningstar.